They thought humans were weak. They thought 10 billion deaths would break us. They thought we would beg for mercy, crawl on our knees, and accept our place as the lowest species in their empire. The Vakrian Galactic Empire had conquered 400 star systems, subjugated 63 intelligent species, and ruled the Orion Arm with absolute authority for 3,000 years. They had never encountered resistance they couldn't crush, never faced an enemy they couldn't break, but they had never fought humans before. They killed our children, burned our colonies, and laughed as they broadcasted our suffering across their empire as entertainment. They wanted to make an example of us, to show the galaxy what happens to species who dare to reject imperial rule. They succeeded in making an example, just not the one they intended. What the Vakrians didn't understand was that humans have a simple rule. You can hurt us, you can scare us, but if you try to exterminate us, we will not rest until we exterminate you first. This is not a story of survival. This is a story of extinction. Theirs, not ours. The conference room, deep beneath the ruins of Geneva, was silent except for the hum of backup generators. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table, her face illuminated by the holographic display showing the charred remains of Mars Colony 7. The footage was 3 weeks old, but it still made her stomach turn. 10 billion people gone. Vaporized by Vakrian plasma bombardment in a coordinated strike that lasted 72 hours. The Empire had hit 12 human colonies simultaneously, broadcasting every moment to their vassal species as a warning. They wanted to terrorize us into submission, Sarah said quietly, her dark eyes fixed on the images of burning cities. They think we're like the Planari, who surrendered after losing a single colony, or the Thexians, who became willing servants after their homeworld was threatened. Around the table sat the remnants of Earth's military command. General Marcus Webb, his grey hair and lined face showing the weight of losing 3 sons on Europa. Commander Yuki Tanaka, whose entire research fleet had been destroyed at the Kepler station. Colonel James Richardson, who had watched helplessly from his ship as his homeworld of Titan burned. They were tired, grieving, and angry. "What are our options?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. "The Vakrian Empire has 12,000 warships. We have maybe 300 that survived their initial attack. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their shields can absorb anything we throw at them, and their weapons can crack planets." Sarah turned away from the hologram and looked at each person in the room. "We have one option! Total war! Complete extinction of the Vakrian species. Not occupation, not surrender, not negotiation. Extinction." The room fell silent. Yuki leaned forward, her hands clasped on the table. "Admiral, with all due respect, that's impossible. Even if we threw every remaining ship at their core worlds, we'd barely scratch their defenses. The Empire has been building its military for 3 millennia. We've been in space for less than 2 centuries. "You're right," Sarah agreed. "In a conventional war, we'd lose in days. That's why Operation Extinction won't be conventional." She pressed a button on the table and the hologram changed. Instead of burning colonies, it showed a complex web of data, genetic sequences, and stellar maps. "For the past 6 months, we've been working on something. A weapon the Vakrians won't see coming because their arrogance won't let them believe we're capable of creating it." James stood up, moving closer to the hologram. "What am I looking at?" "Project Prometheus," Sarah said, "named after the Titan who stole fire from the gods. The Vakrians think they're gods, ruling the galaxy from their throne worlds. We're going to steal their fire and burn them with it." The hologram zoomed in on a molecular structure that pulsed with an eerie blue light. 6 months ago, we captured a Vakrian scout ship intact. The crew killed themselves rather than be taken prisoner, which gave our scientists something invaluable: fresh Vakrian DNA. We've spent every day since then studying their biology, their weaknesses, and their psychology. Marcus frowned. "A biological weapon? Sarah, that's a war crime under the Geneva Accords." "The Geneva Accords were written for human conflicts," Sarah replied coldly. "The Vakrians aren't human. They don't follow our laws, they don't respect our ethics, and they just murdered 10 billion of our people for entertainment. This isn't about morality anymore. This is about survival. Either they exist, or we do. There's no middle ground." She changed the hologram again, this time showing a Vakrian. The alien stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms, crystalline skin that shimmered purple and black, and eyes that glowed with an inner light. They were beautiful in an alien way, which made their cruelty even more disturbing. The Empire's propaganda showed them as benevolent rulers bringing order to chaos. The reality was different. They were slavers, torturers, and genocidal tyrants who believed other species existed only to serve them. The Vakrians have one critical weakness, Sarah continued. Their biology is incredibly complex but inflexible. 3,000 years ago, they used genetic engineering to eliminate disease, extend their lifespan to 500 years, and enhance their physical abilities. But in doing so, they removed almost all genetic diversity from their species. Every Vakrian is essentially a clone of the same base template, with only minor variations. Yuki's eyes widened. That means exactly, Sarah interrupted. A targeted pathogen that affects one Vakrian will affect all of them. We've created a virus specifically designed to attack their enhanced immune system. It's airborne, highly contagious, and has a 100% mortality rate. Once it's released on their core worlds, it will spread through their entire empire within months. The room erupted in voices. Questions, objections, and shocked exclamations filled the air. Sarah let them talk, understanding their hesitation. What she was proposing went against everything they'd been trained to believe. Soldiers were supposed to fight with honor, to distinguish between combatants and civilians, to follow the rules of war. But the rules had been written for wars between humans who shared common values. The Vakrians had no honor, showed no mercy, and would never stop until humanity was either enslaved or extinct. Listen to me, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the noise. I know what I'm asking. I know this makes us monsters in the eyes of history, but history only matters if we're alive to write it. The Vakrians gave us a choice. Die slowly as slaves, or die quickly in resistance. I'm offering a third option. We live, and they die. All of them. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. And what about their vassal species? The Empire controls 63 different civilizations. If we wipe out the Vakrians, what happens to them? They go free, Sarah answered. Our intelligence shows that most vassal species hate the Empire. The Plenari have been waiting for a chance to rebel for centuries. The Keth have active resistance movements on every world. The Thexians maintain secret military caches in violation of imperial law. Without the Vakrians enforcing order, the Empire will collapse. Some species will fight each other, some will form alliances, but they'll all be free to choose their own paths. James walked around the table, studying the hologram from different angles. How do we deliver this weapon? The Vakrian core worlds are deep in Imperial space, protected by defense grids that can destroy entire fleets. Even if we managed to get a ship through, they'd detect any biological weapon before it could be deployed. That's the brilliant part. We're not going to use ships. We're going to use their own arrogance against them. The Empire has a tradition called the Tribute Fleet. Once every 5 years, vassal species send ships loaded with gifts to the Vakrian homeworld of Vakros Prime. Art, technology, resources, and slaves. It's a humiliation ritual designed to remind everyone of their place in the Imperial hierarchy. She changed the hologram to show a schedule of arrivals. The next tribute fleet departs in 6 weeks. 73 ships from across the Empire, all traveling together for protection, all following the same route to Vakros Prime. The Vakrians will inspect the cargo for weapons and contraband, but they won't be looking for a virus. They're so convinced of their biological superiority that they don't even have medical quarantine protocols. Why would they? They haven't had a disease in 3,000 years. We infiltrate the tribute fleet, Yuki said slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Disguise one of our ships as a vassal vessel, load it with infected materials, and let the Vakrians bring the plague into their own capital. Not just Vakros Prime. After the tribute ceremony, the Imperial Court distributes gifts to the ruling families across all 7 core worlds. They'll carry the virus themselves, spreading it to every major population center in the Empire. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late. The pathogen has a 48-hour incubation period. For 2 days, infected Vakrians will feel fine, maybe a little tired. Then the symptoms start. Fever, organ failure, and death within 72 hours. There is no cure. We made sure of that. Marcus sat down heavily, his face pale. You're talking about killing trillions, not just soldiers, but civilians, children. They killed our children first, Sarah said quietly. They broadcast it across the galaxy as entertainment. I watched Vakrian audiences laugh as our colonies burned. I heard them cheer when the death toll was announced. They don't see us as people, Marcus. To them, we're animals that got too uppity. This is the only language they understand. The room fell silent again. Each person struggled with their conscience, weighing the enormity of what Sarah proposed against the reality of their situation. Humanity was losing. Without drastic action, they would be extinct within a generation. But was genocide the answer? Could they live with themselves after committing such an act? There's one more thing, Sarah said softly. The virus is specifically tailored to Vakrian DNA. It won't affect any other species. We tested it on samples from 12 different alien races, including humans. 0 cross-species transmission. This weapon will only kill Vakrians, no one else. James looked up sharply. You've already made it? This isn't a proposal, it's a briefing. The virus was completed 2 weeks ago. It's currently stored in a level 5 containment facility in Antarctica, guarded by a team that doesn't know what they're protecting. I brought you here to make a decision. Do we deploy Operation Extinction, or do we try to find another way? But understand this. If we choose to fight conventionally, we will lose. The Empire will grind us down, colony by colony, until nothing remains but scattered refugees hiding in the dark spaces between stars. This weapon is our only chance for survival. She looked at each of them in turn. I need unanimous approval from this council. If even one of you says no, we'll find another way. But if you say yes, we commit completely. There's no halfway genocide. Once we release this virus, there's no stopping it. No vaccine, no cure. The Vakrian species will cease to exist. The silence stretched out. Minutes passed. Each person stared at the hologram, at the molecular structure of the virus that could end a war before it truly began. They thought about the 10 billion dead, about the colonies reduced to ash, about the children who had burned while aliens laughed. They thought about morality, about consequences, about the kind of species humanity would become if they did this terrible thing. Finally, Marcus spoke. My sons died on Europa. They were scientists, not soldiers. The Vakrians killed them because they were human, for no other reason. If we don't stop the Empire, they'll do it again and again, until we're gone. He looked at Sarah with eyes that held both sorrow and determination. I vote yes. Yuki was next. My team was studying ways to terraform dead worlds, to give humanity room to grow. The Vakrians destroyed years of research and murdered people who dedicated their lives to creation, not destruction. We can't let that stand. She took a deep breath. Yes. James stood up and walked to the hologram, reaching out as if to touch the virus that glowed in the projected light. I'm a soldier. I've killed enemy combatants in battle, and I've made peace with that. This is different. This is something darker. He paused, then turned to face Sarah. But you're right. It's them or us, and I choose us. Yes. Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her, but she kept her face neutral. Then it's decided. Operation Extinction is approved. We have 6 weeks to prepare everything. James, you'll lead the infiltration team. Your mission is to get a ship into the tribute fleet and deliver the payload to Vakros Prime. Yuki, you'll coordinate with our intelligence assets in vassal territories. We need perfect timing and perfect deception. Marcus, you'll command our remaining fleet. Once the virus is deployed, the Empire will retaliate with everything they have. We need to be ready to defend Earth and our surviving colonies. She pressed another button, and the hologram changed to show a detailed timeline. This is how it happens. Day 1. Our infiltration ship joins the tribute fleet at the Nexus station. Day 15. The fleet arrives at Vakros Prime. Day 16. The tribute ceremony where infected materials are distributed to the ruling families. Day 18. The virus reaches its incubation threshold. Symptoms begin. Day 21. Mass casualties on all 7 core worlds. The Empire's command structure collapses. Day 30. Vassal species begin their rebellions. Day 60. The Vakrian species is extinct. Marcus studied the timeline with a military eye. What about their automated defenses? If the command structure collapses, those systems might activate fail-safes. Scorched Earth protocols. Already accounted for, Sarah replied. We've identified the central AI that controls Imperial defenses. Once the virus has done its work, we'll transmit a shutdown code derived from Vacrian command protocols we captured. The AI will interpret the mass death as a catastrophic system failure and enter safe mode, disabling all weapons. The Empire's fleets will be dead in space. Yuki pulled up a data pad and began making notes. We'll need cover identities for the infiltration team, perfect documentation, flawless language skills, and an understanding of Vacrian protocol that won't raise suspicion. That's a tall order in 6 weeks. We already have assets in place, Sarah said. 3 years ago, we placed deep cover agents in several vassal species territories. They've been building cover identities and establishing connections ever since. We knew war with the Empire was coming eventually. We just didn't expect it to start this way. She changed the hologram one final time, showing Earth hanging in space, beautiful and blue and precious. Humanity has been fighting for survival since we first evolved. We've faced extinction events, ice ages, plagues, and wars. Every time, we adapted, we persevered, and we survived. The Vacrians think they can break us because they broke everyone else. They're wrong. We're going to show them what happens when you try to exterminate a species that's been fighting for survival since before they learned to make fire. Sarah looked at each council member in turn, seeing the resolution in their eyes. Operation Extinction begins now. We have 6 weeks to save humanity. Let's get to work. As the meeting ended and people filed out to begin their assignments, Sarah remained alone in the conference room, staring at the image of Earth. She had just sentenced trillions to death, had made herself the architect of genocide. History would remember her as either humanity's savior or its greatest monster, perhaps both. But she had made her choice. The Vacrians had started this war with murder and terror. Humanity would end it with extinction. The Empire had killed 10 billion humans and expected surrender. They were about to learn that humans don't surrender. They exterminate. The cargo ship Endless Bounty drifted through the designated assembly point near Nexus Station, its hull painted with the colors of the Planari Confederacy. To any observer, it looked like just another vassal vessel preparing to join the tribute fleet. The ship's registry showed it carried traditional Planari artwork, rare minerals from their homeworld, and samples of their finest textiles. The documentation was perfect because it was real. The Planari resistance had provided everything, risking execution if the Empire discovered their cooperation with humanity. Inside the ship, Colonel James Richardson adjusted the neural interface that masked his human biosigns and made him appear Planari to any scanner. The technology was experimental, barely tested, and gave him splitting headaches. But it worked. He looked at his reflection in the polished metal wall and saw a Planari staring back. Blue-green skin, large multifaceted eyes, and the distinctive ridge crest that marked their species. The illusion was perfect down to the molecular level. "Status report," he said, his voice translated into perfect Planari by the interface. Lieutenant Maya Santos appeared from the cargo bay, her own disguise making her look like a Planari engineer. "The payload is secured in Container 7, hidden inside a shipment of decorative crystals. Scanners will read it as inert geological samples. The virus is stable and will remain dormant until we activate it with the release trigger." "And the crew?" James asked. "All 12 of them are ready. Everyone's interface is functioning, and we've drilled the Planari protocols 1,000 times. We can pass any inspection." Maya paused, her disguised features showing worry. "Sir, I have to ask, are we really going to do this? Once we release that virus, there's no taking it back." James had asked himself the same question every day for 6 weeks. During the intensive training, during the long journey to Nexus Station, during the quiet moments when his conscience screamed at him about what he was about to do. The answer never changed. The Vacrians murdered 10 billion people, Maya. They did it slowly, making sure everyone suffered, making sure we watched. They wanted to break our spirit. "If we don't stop them permanently, they'll just keep killing until we're extinct." "But genocide?" Maya whispered. "Sir, we're talking about ending an entire species. Children who never hurt anyone. Scientists, artists, people who might have opposed what their government did." "I know," James said quietly. "I think about it constantly. But the Empire is built on absolute conformity. Every Vacrian supports their government because they believe they're superior to all other life. Their entire culture celebrates conquest and domination. There are no peace movements, no anti-war protests, no dissenting voices. They're united in their belief that the galaxy belongs to them. He met Maya's eyes. I don't like what we're doing, but I love humanity more than I hate this mission. Before Maya could respond, the communication system crackled to life. A harsh Vakrian voice filled the ship, speaking the Imperial trade language. Vessel Endless Bounty, this is Fleet Coordinator Thex Var. You are cleared to join Formation Position 17 in the Tribute Fleet. Maintain designated spacing and prepare for inspection at first waypoint. Any deviation from protocol will result in immediate destruction. Acknowledge. James switched to the communication console, his interface perfectly mimicking plenary vocal patterns. Acknowledged, Fleet Coordinator. The Endless Bounty is honored to serve the Empire. We will maintain formation and await inspection. See that you do, the Vakrian replied with casual contempt. The Empire expects perfection from its vassals, especially from species who have disappointed us in the past. The communication cut off. James clenched his fists, fighting the urge to say something that would blow their cover. The Plenari had been among the first species conquered by the Empire, their peaceful nature making them easy targets. For 800 years they had served without complaint, building a reputation as loyal vassals. The Vakrians never suspected that beneath that loyalty lay burning hatred and a desire for freedom. Arrogant bastards, Maya muttered. They think everyone loves being their slaves. Their arrogance is going to kill them, James replied. He activated the ship's engines and guided the Endless Bounty into position. Around them, 72 other vessels did the same, forming a precise geometric pattern that satisfied Vakrian obsession with order. Each ship represented a different vassal species, each carried tribute, and each crew secretly hoped this would be the last time they had to humiliate themselves before their masters. The tribute fleet began moving, accelerating toward the first jump point. The journey to Vakros Prime would take 12 days through a series of carefully mapped hyperspace corridors. At each waypoint, Vakrian inspectors would board random vessels to check cargo and ensure compliance. James and his team had to be perfect. One mistake, one suspicious reading, one nervous glance, and they would be discovered. The Empire's punishment for deception was creative and prolonged. 3 days into the journey, their luck ran out. Or maybe it was just probability. With 73 ships in the fleet, some would be inspected. The Endless Bounty's communication system activated with a message that made James's blood run cold. Endless Bounty, prepare for inspection. An Imperial team will board in 30 minutes. Have your cargo manifests ready and all crew assembled in the main hold. Any resistance will be considered rebellion and met with immediate execution of all personnel. Acknowledge. James forced his voice to remain calm and subservient. Acknowledged, Inspector. The Plenary Confederacy is honored by your attention. We will be ready. He switched to the ship's internal communication. All hands. This is the Colonel. We have an inspection in 30 minutes. Remember your training. You are Plenari. You are loyal to the Empire. And you are terrified of your masters. Make them believe it. The crew assembled in the main hold, arranging themselves in the proper formation that Plenary protocol demanded. James stood at the front, his posture showing submission and respect. Maya and the others waited behind him, their disguised features showing appropriate nervousness. The cargo containers were arranged perfectly, with Container 7 hidden in the middle of the shipment where casual inspection would miss it. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. 3 Vakrians entered, their crystalline skin glowing with an inner light that marked them as members of the Imperial Inspection Corps. They were beautiful and terrible, moving with the casual arrogance of beings who had never been challenged. The leader, his rank marks identifying him as Inspector Keth Zor, looked at the assembled crew with obvious disdain. Plenari, he said, making the species name sound like an insult. I am told your people have been satisfactory servants of the Empire. I hope this tribute reflects that continued loyalty. James bowed deeply, the gesture feeling like swallowing poison. Honored Inspector, the Plenary Confederacy lives to serve. Our tribute includes the finest artworks created by our master craftspeople, rare minerals essential for Imperial manufacturing, and textiles woven using techniques passed down for generations. We hope the Empire finds them acceptable. Keth Zor gestured to his assistants, who began scanning the cargo containers with handheld devices. Acceptable is the minimum standard. The Empire demands excellence. He walked closer to James, towering over him by 2 feet. I was present when your homeworld was conquered. Your people surrendered within hours. No resistance, no defiance, just immediate capitulation. It was disappointing. At least some species have the spirit to fight before they kneel. The Plenari value life above pride, Honored Inspector, James said, hating every word, but knowing it was what a real Plenari would say. We understood that resistance against the Empire's might would only lead to needless death. Wise, Kethzor agreed. Cowardly, but wise. The galaxy is better ordered with species like yours. You know your place. He turned to observe his assistants as they moved through the cargo bay, their scanners analyzing each container. James felt sweat forming under his disguise, but the neural interface absorbed it, maintaining the illusion. If they opened Container 7, if they looked too closely at the crystals, if they ran a deep scan, one of the assistants paused at Container 7. Inspector, these geological samples are unusual. The crystalline structure shows a pattern I haven't seen before. James's heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Those are crystals from the deep mines of Plenar 4. Honored Inspector. They form only under extreme pressure and are highly prized by our people for religious ceremonies. We thought they would make an appropriate gift for the Imperial Court. The assistant ran his scanner again, frowning at the readings. The molecular density is higher than standard geological formations. Show me. This was it. The moment where everything could fall apart. James had prepared for this possibility, had a backup plan ready, but it would mean activating the virus early and trying to escape. The endless bounty would be destroyed, his crew would die, and the mission would fail. But before he could make that terrible decision, Maya stepped forward. "Forgive me, Honored Inspector," she said, her voice trembling with perfectly calculated fear. "I am the ship's geologist. The high molecular density is due to the extreme age of these samples. They were formed over 3 billion years ago when our planet's core was still molten. The pressure and time created a unique crystalline lattice that concentrates mass. I have the geological surveys from the mining operation if you wish to verify." She held out a data tablet, her hands shaking just enough to seem genuine. Kethzor looked at her for a long moment, his glowing eyes analyzing every detail. James prepared to give the signal to activate the virus if the inspector decided to investigate further. But then Kethzor waved dismissively. "That won't be necessary. The Empire has little interest in religious trinkets no matter how old." He turned back to James. "However, I am noting in my report that your tribute includes items of questionable value. The Imperial Court expects gifts that demonstrate both your species' capabilities and your understanding of superior Vacrian tastes. Rocks with religious significance are not impressive." James bowed again, deeper this time. "My apologies, Honored Inspector. The Plenari Confederacy will take your guidance to heart for future tributes. We seek only to please the Empire." "See that you do," Kethzor replied. He gestured to his assistants. "We're done here. This ship meets minimum standards." Without another word, the 3 Vacrians left, the airlock sealing behind them, with a finality that felt like a reprieve from execution. The moment they were alone, James let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Status? Did they take any samples?" Maya checked her scanners. "Negative. They ran surface scans but didn't extract anything. Container 7 is intact." "That was too close," one of the crew members said, his voice shaky even through the translator. "If they had opened that container—" "But they didn't," James interrupted. "'Cause we sold the story perfectly. Maya, that was brilliant improvisation with the geological survey. I figured religious artifacts would be beneath their notice," Maya replied. "The Vacrians are so convinced of their superiority that they can't imagine we'd hide something dangerous in items they consider worthless." James nodded, a grim smile on his disguised face. "Their arrogance is our weapon. They see vassals as simple-minded servants who couldn't possibly threaten them. That's why this is going to work." The tribute fleet continued its journey toward Vacros Prime. 9 more days of tension, of maintaining their disguises, of knowing that each moment could bring discovery. James spent the time reviewing intelligence reports on Vacrian culture and the tribute ceremony. His team had to understand every protocol, every gesture, every word of the formal presentation. One mistake during the ceremony could alert security forces before the virus could be distributed. On the 12th day they arrived. Vacros Prime filled the view screen, a planet of impossible beauty. The Vacrian homeworld gleamed with cities of living crystal that grew from the ground like forests. Orbital platforms surrounded it in perfect geometric patterns, each one a work of art and engineering. This was the heart of an empire that had ruled the Orion Arm for 3,000 years, home to 50 billion Vakrians who considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, staring at the planet. "It won't be for long," James replied quietly. In his pocket, he carried the activation trigger for the virus, a simple device no larger than a coin that would release the pathogen when pressed. Once activated, the virus would spread through the ventilation systems of the tribute hall, would cling to the gifts presented to the Imperial Court, would contaminate everything the Vakrians touched. Within 48 hours, this beautiful planet would become a tomb. The tribute fleet moved into orbital pattern, each ship taking its designated position. Ground control directed them with precise instructions, guiding them through the defense grids that protected the planet. James noted the placement of weapon platforms, shield generators, and military vessels. The Empire's capital was the most heavily defended location in known space. No enemy fleet could reach this world. But they weren't a fleet. They were a single ship carrying death itself. "All vessels. This is ground control," a Vakrian voice announced. "You will land at the Imperial Tribute Complex in sequence. Maintain proper spacing and await your designated landing time. The tribute ceremony will begin at the height of the third sun. Any deviation from schedule will not be tolerated." The endless bounty waited its turn, watching as ships descended one by one toward the planet's surface. When their time came, James guided the ship through the atmosphere, following the navigation beacon to the massive complex below. The tribute complex was larger than some cities, a sprawling collection of landing platforms, ceremonial halls, and processing centers where the Empire collected its due from the galaxy. They landed smoothly, the ship settling onto a platform marked with planari symbols. Through the view screen, James could see Vakrian officials moving between ships, directing cargo handling and preparing for the ceremony. In a few hours, they would stand before the Imperial Court and present their tribute. In a few hours, Operation Extinction would enter its final phase. "Final equipment check," James ordered. "Make sure your neural interfaces are stable. Once we enter the tribute hall, we'll be under direct observation by the Imperial Guard. Perfect performance, people. Humanity's survival depends on it." The crew performed their checks, each person reviewing their assigned role in the ceremony. They had practiced 1,000 times, but this was real. This was the moment where training became action, where planning became execution. James felt the weight of what they were about to do, felt the enormity of the decision that had brought them to this point. His communication system activated with a new message. "Vessel Endless Bounty, you are scheduled for tribute presentation in 1 hour. Prepare your cargo and crew. You will be escorted to Imperial Hall 7. The court expects punctuality and proper decorum. Failure to meet these standards will result in your species' tribute quota being doubled for the next decade." "Acknowledged," James replied. "The Planari Confederacy is honored to serve." He looked at his crew, seeing fear and determination in their disguised faces. "This is it. In 1 hour, we end this war before it really begins. We give humanity a chance to survive. Remember why we're here. Remember the 10 billion who died. Remember what the Empire will do if we fail." Maya stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. "We remember, sir, and we're ready." James nodded. He activated his personal communication channel, sending an encrypted burst transmission toward Earth. 3 words that would tell Admiral Chen the mission was proceeding as planned. "Prometheus has fire." Far above, in the orbital platforms surrounding Vakros Prime, military vessels maintained their patrols. Defense grids hummed with power, ready to destroy any threat to the Empire's heart. Automated systems monitored every ship, every movement, every communication. The Vakrians felt completely safe in their impregnable fortress world, surrounded by the might they had accumulated over 3 millennia. They had no idea that death had already landed, that in 1 hour, a simple human colonel would walk into their sacred tribute hall and release extinction. The Empire had killed 10 billion humans and expected submission. They were about to learn what humans did to species who tried to exterminate them. Imperial Hall 7 was a masterpiece of Vakrian architecture. The walls were living crystal that pulsed with soft light, responding to the presence of those within. The ceiling arched impossibly high, supported by pillars that seemed to grow from the floor like ancient trees made of gemstone. At the far end, elevated on a platform of pure diamond, sat the Imperial Receiving Court. 7 Vacrian nobles, each representing one of the core worlds, waited to judge the tribute brought by their vassals. James walked at the head of his crew, his disguised features showing the proper mixture of awe and submission expected from a plenary. Behind him, anti-gravity platforms carried the tribute containers, including Container 7 with its deadly cargo. Other species filled the hall, each waiting their turn to present gifts to their masters. The air hummed with tension, and the quiet murmur of translation devices converting dozens of languages into something comprehensible. "Endless bounty crew approach," a herald announced, his voice amplified through the hall. "Present your tribute to the Eternal Empire." James walked forward, each step measured and precise according to plenary protocol. The crew followed, guiding the floating containers toward the receiving platform. As they moved, James noted the security measures. Imperial guards stood at every entrance, their weapons capable of vaporizing a threat in microseconds. Scanner fields monitored for weapons, explosives, and biological threats. But the scanners were calibrated to detect known dangers, things the Empire had encountered before. They had never faced anything like the virus hidden in Container 7. He reached the platform and performed the traditional plenary bow, lowering himself almost to the floor. His crew did the same, their movements synchronized perfectly. When he rose, James addressed the court in flawless plenary, his neural interface translating his words. "Honored members of the Imperial Court, the Plenary Confederacy presents its tribute to the Eternal Empire. We offer the finest works created by our people, tokens of our loyalty and gratitude for the order you have brought to our worlds." I, Judge Vexthara, representing Vakros Prime itself, leaned forward on her crystal throne. Her eyes glowed with the particular intensity that marked senior Vacrians, those who had lived for centuries and accumulated vast power. "The plenary have always been satisfactory servants. What have you brought to demonstrate your continued value to the Empire?" James gestured to the first container, which opened to reveal intricate sculptures carved from compressed mineral. Art created by our master craftspeople, each piece unique and irreplaceable. They represent the highest achievement of plenary culture. Vexthara barely glanced at them. "Adequate. Continue." Container after container was presented. Rare minerals, delicate textiles, technological components manufactured to imperial specifications. Each gift was acknowledged with the bare minimum of attention, the court's disinterest making it clear they considered this a tedious obligation. James felt anger burning beneath his disguise. These people accepted tribute from species they had conquered, showed no appreciation for the incredible work required to create such gifts, and treated the entire ceremony as beneath their notice. Finally, they reached Container 7. "And lastly, honored court, we present crystals from the deep mines of Plenar 4. They are sacred to my people, formed over billions of years in the heart of our world. We offer them as symbols of our enduring commitment to the Empire." The container opened, revealing crystals that gleamed with an inner blue light. They were beautiful, genuinely rare geological formations that the plenary resistance had provided. But between each crystal, invisible to scanners and hidden in the microscopic gaps, was the virus. Engineered specifically to become airborne when exposed to the atmospheric conditions of Vacrian worlds, it was already beginning to activate. Vexthara showed the first genuine interest of the ceremony. "Those are unusual. Bring them closer." James felt his pulse quicken but kept his voice steady. "Of course, honored judge." He personally carried the container up the platform steps, approaching the Imperial Court. Each breath he took released more viral particles into the air. The ventilation system in the hall, designed to keep the atmosphere perfect for Vacrian biology, drew the virus in and began circulating it throughout the building. The High Judge reached out, her crystalline fingers touching one of the crystals. In that moment of contact, trillions of viral particles transferred to her skin. They would penetrate her enhanced immune system within minutes, begin replicating within hours, and reach lethal concentrations in 48 hours. "Beautiful," she said. "The Empire accepts this tribute. These crystals will be distributed among the ruling families as tokens of vassal loyalty." That was exactly what they needed. The court would take the infected crystals, would distribute them across all 7 core worlds, would spread the virus themselves. James bowed deeply. "The Plenary Confederacy is honored beyond measure. You may withdraw," Vexthara said, already losing interest. "Next tribute vessel, approach." James and his crew backed away from the platform, maintaining proper protocol until they reached the hall's exit. Only when they were outside, walking back toward their ship, did Maya allow herself to speak through their private communication channel. "It's done. The virus is active and spreading." "Confirmed," James replied quietly. "I'm reading atmospheric dispersal throughout the hall. Within an hour, everyone in that building will be infected. The ventilation system is doing our work for us." They reached the endless bounty and sealed themselves inside. James immediately began the pre-flight sequence, knowing that speed was now essential. Once the Vakrians realized what was happening, they would lock down the planet and destroy every ship in orbit. They had a narrow window to escape. "Ground control. This is Endless Bounty," James transmitted. "The Planari Confederacy thanks the Empire for receiving our tribute. We request permission to depart and return to our homeworld." Then, "Permission granted, Endless Bounty. You are cleared for immediate departure. The Empire acknowledges your service." The ship lifted off, climbing through the atmosphere toward orbital space. James watched the planet shrink on the view screen, seeing the beautiful crystal cities that would soon become graveyards. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only the grim certainty that what he had done was necessary. The Vakrians had given humanity no choice: surrender or extinction. James had chosen a third option: their extinction instead. As they cleared the orbital defense grid and jumped to hyperspace, James activated the encrypted communication to Earth. "Admiral Chen, this is Colonel Richardson. Operation Extinction is complete. The virus has been deployed on Vakros Prime and will spread to all 7 core worlds through the tribute distribution system. Estimated timeline remains unchanged. We are en route to the rendezvous point." The response took several minutes due to the distance, but when it came, Sarah Chan's voice was steady despite the weight of what they had done. "Acknowledged, Colonel. The fleet is positioning for the predicted retaliation. Once the Empire realizes what's happening, they'll launch everything they have at Earth. We'll be ready." James looked at his crew, seeing the mixture of relief and horror on their disguised faces. "We did it," Maya said quietly. "We actually did it." "We did," James agreed. "Now we have to live with it." The incubation period was exactly 48 hours, just as the scientists had predicted. For 2 days, the Vakrians who had attended the tribute ceremony felt fine. Perhaps a bit tired, but nothing concerning. The crystals from Container 7 were distributed as promised, sent to ruling families across all 7 core worlds. Each transport carried the virus. Each handler became infected. Each new location became another point of dispersal. On Vakros Prime, High Judge Vextara woke on the 3rd day feeling unusual. As someone who had lived for 470 years, she knew her body's rhythms perfectly. This was different. A fever, faint but growing. Discomfort in her crystalline skin. She contacted her personal physician, unconcerned but curious about this anomaly. The physician ran scans and found nothing wrong. "Perhaps you're experiencing a reaction to something at the tribute ceremony. Honored Judge, I recommend rest and observation." But by that evening, Vextara's fever had spiked dramatically. Her skin, normally glowing with vibrant light, had begun to dim. Pain radiated through her body in ways she had never experienced. The physician returned with more sophisticated equipment and this time found something horrifying. A virus, aggressive and highly adapted to Vakrian biology, multiplying exponentially in her system. "This is impossible," the physician said, her hands shaking as she reviewed the scans. "We eliminated disease 3,000 years ago. How could you be infected with something our immune systems can't fight?" Vextara tried to respond but found her voice failing. The virus was attacking her enhanced organs, shutting down systems that had been engineered to be perfect. Within hours, the symptoms spread. Other members of the Imperial Court reported similar conditions. Then staff members who had been in the tribute hall. Then guards. Then administrators. The infection spread exponentially, moving through ventilation systems, touching surfaces, riding on every breath. Emergency medical teams mobilized, but they quickly realized the scope of the crisis. Thousands were sick, then tens of thousands. The virus spread faster than they could track. And worst of all, it was completely resistant to every medical treatment they attempted. Acrian biotechnology, advanced beyond anything else in the galaxy, was helpless against this engineered pathogen. On the 4th day, Vextara died. Her death was followed by hundreds more within hours. The Imperial Court declared a medical emergency and attempted to quarantine Vakros Prime, but it was too late. The infected crystals had already reached the other 6 core worlds. The ruling families had touched them, admired them, and in doing so signed the death warrant for their entire species. The Empire's communication networks exploded with panic. Reports flooded in from every core world. The virus was everywhere, infecting millions, and there was no cure. Medical facilities were overwhelmed within days. The Vakrians, who had believed themselves biologically perfect, discovered that their genetic uniformity made them perfectly vulnerable. What infected one, infected all. On the 7th day, the death toll reached 1 billion. The Empire's government struggled to maintain order, but their leaders were dying. Military commanders, administrators, scientists, all succumbing to the virus. The vassal species watched in stunned silence as their masters fell, as the empire that had ruled for 3 millennia collapsed in less than a week. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen monitored the reports with grim satisfaction. The Vakrian fleet is disorganized. Their command structure is in chaos. Most of their capital ships are dead in space because their crews are too sick to function. General Marcus Webb stood beside her, watching the tactical displays. Should we expect retaliation? They tried, Sarah replied. 3 days ago, they launched a strike fleet toward Earth, but the virus was already spreading through their ships. Half the crews died before they could complete the jump to our system. The survivors turned back, trying to save their homeworlds. How many are left? Marcus asked quietly. Sarah pulled up the latest intelligence estimates. On the core worlds? Current projections suggest total extinction within 30 days. The virus is too aggressive, too perfectly tailored to their biology. Every Vakrian who comes into contact with an infected individual contracts the disease, and with their enhanced lifespan and social customs requiring close contact, they're spreading it themselves faster than any plague in history. Marcus watched the data scroll past, seeing the casualty numbers climb into the hundreds of billions. And the vassal species? Exactly as we predicted. The moment they realized the Empire was dying, rebellion started everywhere. The Planari have already reclaimed their homeworld. The Keth have destroyed every Vakrian military installation in their territory. The Phexians are negotiating alliances with neighboring species. Without the Vakrians enforcing order, the Empire is fragmenting into independent systems. And us? Marcus asked. Sarah turned to face him, her expression hard. We're preparing for whatever comes next. The galaxy knows what we did, even if they don't have proof. Some species will fear us, some will want to ally with us, and some will see us as a threat to be eliminated before we do to them what we did to the Vakrians. On the 30th day, High Monitor Keith Var, one of the last surviving members of the Imperial Court, recorded a final message from Vakros Prime. The planet's crystal cities were dark, their light extinguished with their inhabitants. Billions of bodies awaited disposal, but there was no one left to perform the task. To any species receiving this transmission, Keth Var said, his voice weak and his skin barely glowing, the Vakrian Empire has fallen. Not to superior force, not to military conquest, but to a weapon we never anticipated. The humans, a species we considered primitive and easily controlled, have ended us. They created a virus specifically designed to kill only Vakrians, and they deployed it with precision and ruthlessness we thought ourselves immune to. He coughed, his body failing. We thought killing 10 billion of their people would break their will. Instead, it forged them into something terrible. We wanted to make an example of them, to show the galaxy what happens to species who defy the Empire. They made an example of us instead. Keth Var looked directly into the camera, his dying eyes showing something the Vakrian species had rarely experienced. Fear. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Humanity does not surrender. They do not forgive. And if you attempt to exterminate them, they will exterminate you first. We killed 10 billion humans and expected submission. They killed us all in response. Learn from our mistake. Never threaten humanity with extinction unless you are absolutely certain you can succeed, because if you fail, they will ensure you never get a second chance. The transmission ended. Keth Var died 17 minutes later, the last of the Imperial Court. Within weeks, the Vakrian species was extinct, their 3,000-year empire reduced to empty cities and cautionary tales. In Geneva, Sarah Chen addressed the reformed United Earth Council. The room was packed with representatives from every surviving human colony, their faces showing the weight of what had been done in their name. Operation Extinction is complete, Sarah said simply. The Vacrian species no longer exists. Their empire has collapsed, and the vassal species are free. We achieved our objective at a cost of 12 crew members and 1 infiltration ship. In exchange, we ensured humanity's survival and eliminated an existential threat. One representative stood, his face troubled. Admiral, what we did was genocide. How do we justify that to ourselves? To history? To the other species in the galaxy? Sarah met his eyes without flinching. We don't justify it, we live with it. The Vacrians killed 10 billion of our people and planned to kill billions more until we were extinct or enslaved. We responded with the only weapon that could stop them. Was it terrible? Yes. Was it wrong? Perhaps. Was it necessary? Absolutely. She gestured to the holographic display showing Earth whole and intact. Humanity survives. Our children will grow up free instead of enslaved. The galaxy is no longer ruled by genocidal tyrants who believed they had the right to exterminate species who didn't submit. That's what we achieved. That's what those 12 crew members died for. Another representative spoke up. And what about the other species? How do they see us now? They fear us, Sarah admitted. They know what we're capable of when threatened. Some species are already requesting defensive alliances, wanting humanity's protection against other potential threats. Others are keeping their distance, wary of making us their enemy. But none of them doubt that we will defend ourselves with absolute commitment. She paused, letting her words sink in. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Humans are not weak. We are not passive. And if you try to wipe us out, we will respond with everything we have, and we will not stop until the threat is eliminated. The Vacrians wanted to make us an example. They succeeded. We're an example of what happens when you underestimate humanity's will to survive. The council debated for hours, arguing about the morality of what they had done, about the consequences they would face, about the kind of species humanity had become. But beneath all the arguments was a simple truth. They were alive because of Operation Extinction. The Vacrian Empire was gone, and humanity remained. Years later, historians would debate whether Operation Extinction was justified. Ethicists would argue about the morality of genocide as a defensive measure. Politicians would use it as an example of both humanity's strength and its capacity for terrible acts. But in the end, the results spoke for themselves. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was extinct. Humanity had faced annihilation and responded by annihilating their enemy first. The Vacrians had killed 10 billion humans and expected us to break. They learned too late that humans don't break. We adapt, we fight. And when threatened with extinction, we ensure our enemies reach extinction first. That was the real lesson of Operation Extinction. Not that humanity was cruel or ruthless, though we could be both. But that we would do absolutely anything to survive. And any species in the galaxy that threatened humanity's existence would face the same fate as the Vacrians. Total extinction. No mercy. No surrender. Just the absolute certainty that if you tried to wipe us out, we would wipe you out first. The galaxy would never forget what humanity did, and they would never again make the mistake of thinking we were weak. The Empire fell. Humanity stood, and the message echoed across the stars. Never threaten humanity with extinction unless you want to experience it yourself.